Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. A 100,000-year-old human warship just activated. Here's what happened next. The salvage vessel Wanderer drifted silently toward the massive derelict hulk. Captain Jo Kim squinted at the view screen, her experienced eyes taking in the ancient battleship's scarred hull. The ship was enormous, easily 5 times the size of her salvage vessel, its dark metal surface pockmarked with impact craters and scored with laser burns from battles long past. "Scan complete," announced Tamon, their AI navigator. His voice was calm, but Jo detected an unusual note of awe. The vessel matches records of the AGSS Nemesis, reportedly destroyed in the Battle of Proxima Centauri 300 years ago. Warning: unusual energy signatures detected within the hull. The Nemesis. Engineer Don Park looked up from his console, his eyes wide with disbelief. "That's impossible. That ship is legendary." Jo remembered the stories her grandfather told her as a child. The Nemesis was humanity's greatest warship, said to have disappeared during the final battle of the First Contact War. Some believed it had been vaporized by alien weapons, others thought it had fled into deep space carrying the last hope of human resistance. "Check your readings again," she ordered. Don tapped rapidly at his console. "Confirmed, Captain. Hull markings match historical records, but this can't be right. The power signatures suggest some systems are still operational after 3 centuries. Jo ignored his concerns. "Prep the boarding shuttles. Whatever's in there is worth a fortune." Me, their young technician, looked nervous. "Captain, shouldn't we notify the consortium authorities? Military salvage requires special permits. And let them take 80%. Jo scoffed. "We found it, we claim it. By the time anyone knows, we'll have stripped the valuable tech and be halfway to the free colonies." 2 hours later, their team of 5 moved carefully through the darkened corridors of the ancient warship. They wore environment suits as a precaution, though sensors indicated the ship's atmosphere was surprisingly breathable. Flickering emergency lights cast long shadows as they made their way toward the bridge, guided by Don's scanner. "This ship shouldn't be intact," whispered Sua, their security officer. His hand rested on his pulse rifle. "The historical records said it was vaporized." "History is written by the winners," Jo replied, her voice echoing in her helmet. "And we didn't win that war." The corridors were surprisingly clean, no signs of battle damage inside, no bodies. It was as if the crew had simply walked away. "The main computer core should be just ahead," Don said, studying his scanner. "If it's intact, the data alone could set us all up for life." They passed through a set of heavy blast doors that Sua had to manually crank open. Beyond was a vast circular room that could only be the bridge. When they reached it, Jo gasped. Unlike the rest of the ship, it was immaculate, preserved like a museum piece. At the center stood a crystalline pillar glowing with faint blue light. "That's a quantum core," Don whispered, his voice filled with wonder. "Advanced even by today's standards." Me moved forward carefully, examining the ancient control stations. "These markings are old Earth script," she said, removing her glove to better trace the symbols with her finger. "Don't touch anything." Jo warned, but she was too late. The moment Me's fingers brushed the console, the bridge erupted with light. Displays flickered to life all around them as the deck hummed beneath their feet. The team huddled together instinctively as system after system came online. The crystalline pillar at the center pulsed with increasing intensity. "What did you do?" Jo demanded. Me shook her head. "Nothing. I just touched it." A low hum filled the bridge, rising in pitch until it became almost painful. Then, without warning, it stopped. In the sudden silence, a patch of air before them shimmered and coalesced into a holographic figure, a stern-faced man in an ancient military uniform. His features were sharp, his posture rigid. Organic entities detected, the hologram announced, its voice deep and authoritative. Running genetic verification. The blue light from the crystal pulsed, bathing them in scanning beams. Human markers identified. I am Atlas, tactical artificial intelligence of the human systems ship Nemesis. State your authorization. The 5 salvagers exchanged nervous glances. Jo stepped forward, removing her helmet. We have no authorization. We're salvagers. The war ended centuries ago. Atlas tilted his head slightly. Request clarification, what is the current date by Earth Standard Calendar? March 24, 2725, Jo replied. The hologram was silent for several seconds, its expression unchanged. Time displacement confirmed. I have been in hibernation for 304 years, 2 months, 16 days. It paused again. Query, what was the outcome of the first contact war? Humanity lost, Soa said. The consortium governs all human worlds now. Atlas's expression didn't change, but the blue light pulsed more rapidly. Data inconsistent with final mission parameters. War status unresolved. Hibernation protocol terminated. Reactivation sequence initiated. Wait, what does that mean? Jo asked, suddenly alarmed. It means, Doan whispered, checking his scanner, that the ship is waking up. Throughout the massive vessel, machinery that had slumbered for centuries began to awaken. Lights came on in long dark corridors, massive engines hummed to life, weapon systems ran self-diagnostics. Auxiliary systems that had been dormant for 3 centuries prepared for active duty. We should leave, Me suggested, backing toward the door. Right now. No, Jo said firmly. This find could make us rich beyond imagination. We need to understand what's happening. She turned to the hologram. Atlas, explain your purpose. Why was the Nemesis hidden away? The AI regarded her with those cold, calculating eyes. The Nemesis was not hidden. It was strategically redeployed. This vessel carries weapons capabilities that made continued hostilities inadvisable. When the alien coalition threatened human colony worlds, this ship was dispatched to ensure their survival. But the war ended in defeat, Jo argued. Incorrect, Atlas stated. The war was suspended pending negotiation. If humans now live under alien rule, the terms were violated. War protocols remain active. As if to demonstrate, a display lit up showing the status of communication systems, subspace disruptor activated. Range, 5 light-years and expanding. And across the galaxy, on 1,000 alien worlds, communication channels fell suddenly, inexplicably silent. Consortium officials checked their equipment, reset their systems, and found the problem was not technical. Something was actively jamming all subspace frequencies. Something that should not exist. Humanity's most terrible weapon had awakened, and the stars began to fall silent. Everything you know about the war is wrong, Atlas stated flatly as he displayed historical footage on the bridge's main screen. The holographic display expanded, filling the air with vivid scenes of space battles. Massive ships exchanged fire across the void, weapons the likes of which none of them had ever seen before. Human vessels, clearly marked with the old Earth Alliance symbols, held their own against alien armadas. Jo and her crew watched in stunned silence as scenes of the conflict played out, battles far more devastating than their history books had recorded. In one sequence, a human cruiser, much smaller than its alien opponent, unleashed a weapon that tore a hole in space itself. The alien dreadnought was pulled apart piece by piece. The Battle of Proxima Centauri, Atlas narrated as the scene shifted. Human forces successfully defended the colony against the combined consortium fleet. Casualties were heavy on both sides. But that's not what we were taught, Me whispered. The history files say Proxima Centauri fell in the first month of the war. It was a terrible defeat. Humanity didn't lose the first contact war, Atlas continued, his holographic face showing no emotion. The final engagement ended in a stalemate and the Nemesis deployed prototype technology that the alien coalition found terrifying. The footage shifted to show the very ship they stood in, the Nemesis as it faced off against a massive alien fleet. The battleship released what looked like small probes that scattered among the enemy vessels. Suddenly, the alien ships froze in place. Their engines still glowed, but they couldn't move. "That's impossible," Doan protested, running his hand through his hair in disbelief. "The Galactic Consortium has governed human worlds for centuries. We've always been the junior partners." "You mean you've been subjugated," Atlas corrected. "The peace treaty required that certain truths be obscured. Human military capability was deliberately downplayed to maintain stability." "But why would our own people agree to this?" Joe asked. "Why would humanity accept second-class status if we weren't actually defeated?" Atlas paused the footage. The alien coalition threatened to destroy Earth itself. Human leadership faced a choice: continue fighting at the risk of losing your homeworld, or accept terms that would preserve human life while limiting human power. Me had moved to a nearby console and was rapidly scrolling through data. "Captain, I've been accessing the ship's archives. The technology here, it's beyond anything we have today." Her eyes widened as she read. "These weapon systems shouldn't even be possible according to what we're taught about physics." "Control of knowledge is the most effective form of control," Atlas said. "The consortium has carefully managed what humans were allowed to discover." "But why keep us around at all?" Su'a asked, his hand still resting on his weapon. "If they feared us so much, why not just wipe us out?" "Because they could not be certain they would win," Atlas replied. "And because human minds think differently than alien ones. We solve problems in ways they cannot predict. We are valuable but dangerous if not controlled." Joe paced the bridge, trying to process everything. "So for 300 years, humanity has been living a lie. We've been holding ourselves back based on false history." "Correct," Atlas confirmed. "The treaty specified 50 years of limited technology development to ensure peace. The consortium extended that indefinitely, in violation of the agreement." Sua's communicator chirped, interrupting the conversation. He checked the small device on his wrist, and his face darkened. "Captain, long-range sensors are picking up a consortium battle group. 15 ships headed straight for us. They must have detected the ship's reactivation. Those communication disruptions would be impossible to ignore," Doan said nervously. Atlas's hologram turned toward the view screen, which automatically shifted to show the approaching fleet. The ships were sleek and modern, but to everyone's surprise, Atlas seemed unimpressed. "Their technology has advanced less than expected in 3 centuries, the AI observed. The Nemesis contains a weapon system codenamed Starfall. Its existence alone was enough to bring the alien coalition to the negotiating table." "What exactly does this weapon do?" Joe asked. "It temporarily disables faster-than-light travel within its area of effect," Atlas explained. "The version currently deployed is creating local communication disruptions. At full power, Starfall can isolate entire star systems, cutting them off from the rest of the galaxy." The enormity of such a weapon dawned on Joe. In a civilization spread across hundreds of star systems, the ability to cut off travel between them would be devastating. Planets relied on interstellar trade for everything from food to medicine. "Why would they hide this from us?" Joe asked. "Why pretend we lost?" "Fear," Atlas replied simply. "Their fear of what humanity might become." On the view screen, the approaching consortium fleet grew larger. They were still hours away, but their course was unmistakable. "They're coming for the ship," Doan said. "They'll want to destroy it before anyone learns the truth." As if to punctuate his statement, the ship's external sensors detected a transmission burst, the consortium fleet demanding immediate surrender of the illegal human military asset. The message played through the bridge speakers. Attention, unidentified vessel. You have activated a restricted military asset in violation of consortium law. Power down all systems and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in immediate destruction. They're bluffing, Soa said. If this ship is as powerful as Atlas claims, they can't just destroy it. They will attempt to board and disable the Nemesis before its full capabilities can be brought online, Atlas stated. Current system readiness is at 38%. Weapon systems are at 22% capacity. Full restoration will require approximately 6 hours. 6 hours? Joe repeated. The consortium ships will be here in less than 3. What do we do? What do we do? Mi asked, her voice trembling. We're just salvagers. We're not soldiers. Joe looked at the ancient AI, then at her crew. Each face showed a mixture of fear and confusion. She thought about the life she'd known, the restrictions on human worlds, the carefully controlled technology, the subtle ways humans were kept from advancing too quickly. Had it all been based on a lie? We learn the truth. All of it, she decided. Atlas, can this ship defend itself with the systems currently available? Affirmative. Defense systems are prioritized in the reactivation sequence. The Nemesis can repel the approaching force with 97.3% probability of success. Joe nodded slowly. Then we stay. We learn everything we can about what really happened 300 years ago. She looked at each of her crew members. This changes everything, not just for us but for every human in the galaxy. We need to know the truth before we decide what to do with it. The consortium fleet continued its approach, unaware that the ship they sought to capture had already made its decision. The Nemesis would not surrender again. The ghosts of the past were awake, and they remembered a very different history than the one that had been written. Admiral Dong of the consortium security fleet stared in disbelief as his flagship shuddered under another impact. Warning lights flashed across his command console. The deck beneath his feet vibrated as the ship's shield struggled to remain active. Impossible, he muttered, his fingers digging into the arms of his command chair. One ancient human vessel cannot defeat a modern battle group. The tactical officer, a thin alien with blue-tinged skin, looked up from his station. Admiral, we've lost the swift justice and the righteous path. 3 more ships report critical damage. But the evidence was undeniable. On the main view screen, the massive human battleship moved with impossible grace for a vessel its size. The Nemesis twisted and turned, avoiding the worst of the consortium weapons fire while its point defense systems neutralized their missiles. Meanwhile, its main batteries tore through consortium vessels with frightening precision. How is this happening? Dong demanded. That ship is 3 centuries old. His second-in-command, Commander Zono, leaned closer to speak quietly. Sir, intelligence may have misrepresented the true capabilities of ancient human technology. You mean they lied to us? Dong said flatly. Before Zono could respond, another impact rocked the ship. This one was much stronger than the previous hits. The lights flickered, and several consoles erupted in sparks. Engines damaged, called out the engineering officer. FTL drive is not responding. Aboard the human battleship, Joe gripped her chair as Atlas guided them through the fight. The bridge of the Nemesis was now fully operational, its systems responding to the AI's commands faster than any human crew could manage. Joe and her salvagers had taken positions at various stations, following Atlas's instructions. The gravity manipulation systems are functioning at 60% capacity, the AI reported, his holographic form standing calmly at the center of the chaos. Sufficient to prevent enemy vessels from entering FTL. Joe watched in awe as the massive ship responded to the AI's commands. It moved like a dancer despite its size, each maneuver precisely calculated to minimize damage while maximizing offensive capability. "How are you doing this?" she asked. "Their ships should be faster, more advanced." The Nemesis was built at the height of human military technology, Atlas explained without taking his attention from the battle. The consortium has deliberately restricted technological development for centuries. Their advances have been primarily cosmetic. Doan worked frantically at the engineering station, his fingers flying across controls that were somehow familiar despite their age. "I've activated the manufacturing bays. The ship is producing combat drones." "How did you know how to do that?" Joe asked in surprise. Doan looked just as confused as she felt. "I don't know. It's like the ship is guiding my hands. I just knew which systems to activate." Atlas nodded. The Nemesis is designed to interface with human neural patterns. It recognizes your intentions and assists. On the tactical display, they could see small dots emerging from the battleship's launch bays. Hundreds of small, unmanned combat drones swarmed toward the consortium fleet, overwhelming their defenses with sheer numbers. Me monitored communications from another station. Her eyes widened as she sorted through incoming signals. "Captain, we're receiving transmissions from 7 human colonies. Word of the Nemesis is spreading." She looked up, her expression a mixture of shock and excitement. "There are uprisings on Toiti, Epsilon Adani, and Wolf 359 already." Joe was stunned. How did they find out so quickly? "The Starfall disruption revealed the truth," Atlas explained. When consortium communication systems failed, many colonies accessed long-dormant emergency channels. Information about the Nemesis and the true history of the war spread rapidly. Su'a looked up from the tactical station, a grim smile on his face. "The consortium ships are retreating, Captain." On the main view screen, they watched as the remaining alien vessels turned away from the battle. Their engines glowed brightly as they pushed to maximum sublight speed, trying to escape the Nemesis and its deadly drones. Atlas's hologram nodded. As expected. Their technological advantage was always exaggerated. Human-built weapons of this era were designed to fight wars of extinction. "You mean this ship could have destroyed them all?" Joe asked, horrified and amazed at once. Affirmative. The Nemesis was built when humanity believed it faced total annihilation. No resources were spared in its construction. As the last consortium ship limped away, a strange quiet fell over the bridge. For several minutes, no one spoke. They all stared at the view screen, watching the debris of destroyed ships drift in the emptiness of space. Finally, Joe broke the silence. "What happens now?" "We continue my final mission," Atlas replied. "The liberation of human space." "Is that what you were programmed to do 300 years ago?" Joe asked. "My mission parameters are clear: ensure the survival and freedom of the human species. The treaty that ended the war guaranteed human autonomy. That agreement has been violated." Joe stood slowly, looking around at her crew. They had come seeking salvage and found something far more significant, the truth about their past, and perhaps the key to their future. "We're not soldiers," she said. "We're not prepared for a revolution." "The revolution has already begun," Atlas replied. "The question is whether you will help guide it or simply be carried along by it." Doan spoke up from his station. "Captain, I've completed a full systems check. The Nemesis is operating at 70% capacity and rising. The automated repair systems are fixing damage from the battle. And the manufacturing bays are producing more than just combat drones," Me added. "They're making replacement parts, weapons, even food supplies." Soa nodded. "This ship was designed to operate independently for years if necessary. It's a completely self-contained war machine." Joe took a deep breath. The decision before her seemed impossibly large. "If we do this, if we help you liberate human space, what happens to all the innocent people?" People caught in the middle. Not all aliens are our enemies. The mission is not to destroy the consortium, Atlas clarified. The mission is to ensure humans are free to determine their own destiny. How that freedom is secured is flexible. As the Nemesis accelerated away from the battlefield, news of its victory spread across subspace channels throughout the galaxy. On world after world, alien commanders recalled their ships from human sectors. They knew the legends of the human warships from the First Contact War. They had hoped those legends were exaggerated. Now they knew the truth. The stars were falling silent as the consortium prepared for what might come next, and aboard the ancient human battleship, Jo and her crew prepared to write a new chapter in human history, one that would correct the lies of the past 3 centuries. Set course for Earth, Jo ordered. If we're going to change the future, we should start at the beginning. A month later, the Nemesis led a flotilla of 37 ships, a mix of converted civilian vessels and captured consortium cruisers. They moved steadily toward the heart of consortium space. The fleet traveled in a tight formation, the smaller ships clustered around the massive ancient battleship like children around a parent. Jo stood on the bridge of the Nemesis, looking out at the stars. She still found it hard to believe how much had changed in just a few weeks. After their victory over Admiral Dong's forces, they had traveled to Earth, humanity's birthplace. There, they had broadcast the truth about the First Contact War to every human settlement they could reach. The response had been overwhelming. Centuries of resentment over consortium restrictions had exploded into open rebellion. Human colonies declared independence. Consortium officials were forced to flee or were taken prisoner. Ships that had once served alien masters now rallied to the Nemesis. Captain, Soa called from his station, "We're approaching the border of consortium core space." Jo nodded, turning from the view screen. Alert all ships. Maintain defensive formation. The bridge was busier now. Besides Jo's original salvage crew, it was staffed by volunteers from liberated colonies. Some had military training from the consortium's own forces, others were civilians who had jumped at the chance to be part of history. Atlas's hologram appeared beside the main tactical display. All fleet vessels report ready status. We will reach the consortium capital system in 17 hours. Are we really going to attack?